Every mind has a basement, a dark, locked room where we hide the parts of ourselves that even we are afraid of. The part that coldly calculates its own advantage, and the wounded animal that screams and attacks in pain. We pretend this room doesn't exist until we see a real monster on the screen and we feel a strange, terrifying pull, a faint glimmer of recognition. Today, we are not just going to talk about the monsters within others. Today, we will descend into that basement. Today, we will meet the psychopath and the sociopath that exists somewhere within us all. Let's first look at the psychopath. This is your cold shadow. The Oxford Dictionary tells us that a psychopath is someone who does not care about the feelings of others and feels no remorse. But let's look at this from a psychological angle. The psychopath is the extreme version of the cold shadow that exists within us, the part that is logical, ruthless, and will go to any length for its objective. It is said that psychopaths are born. Science tells us that at its extreme, there is a difference in brain structure. The amygdala, our brain's threat alarm system, remains silent in them. When they watch bloody scenes, they don't feel fear or anxiety. They remain calm and may even laugh. Now ask yourself, have you ever felt a strange detachment in a crisis where you set emotions aside and thought only with logic? This is a faint glimpse of that same cold shadow within you when you temporarily shut down your alarm system for your own survival. A psychopath is someone whose alarm system is permanently switched off. Psychopaths cannot form real emotional connections with others. They create superficial relationships for their own benefit. Now ask yourself, have you ever maintained a relationship just because you were getting some benefit from it? This question is not to accuse you, but to introduce you to the part of yourself that you hide. The dopamine system in a psychopath's brain is different. They get an addictive pleasure from controlling others and getting their own way. This is the same pleasure we get when we assert our will. But when this pleasure becomes the goal itself, it is a sign of the cold shadow's rule. When committing crimes, this cold shadow is extremely organized and careful. It plans every step to minimize the risk of being caught. This is the part of us that calculates every possible outcome before taking any big step. But this cold shadow is not always a criminal. Some professions like CEO, lawyer, or surgeon attract this cold shadow because they require ruthless and emotionless decision-making. This teaches us that our society often praises this cold shadow by calling it success. This forces us to ask a difficult question. How much of our own desire for success comes from this same cold, calculating shadow? They are compulsive liars without any remorse. Have you ever told a white lie to escape a difficult situation? Where did that lie come from? From the same part of you that can bend the truth for its own survival. Their attention span is also short. They get bored easily and are always looking for new and exciting things. This is the restlessness within us that prevents us from working with perseverance. Now let's look at the sociopath. This is your wounded shadow. The dictionary says that a sociopath is someone who is aggressive and dangerous. But in depth, the sociopath represents the part within us that has been formed by the environment, upbringing, and bad experiences. If the psychopath is born, the sociopath is made. This is the part of you that has been a victim of neglect, criticism, or cruelty. This is the child that is screaming from within. Unlike the psychopath, the sociopath has the capacity for a conscience and remorse, but their wounds are so deep that they cannot control their impulsive anger and aggressive behavior. Have you ever said or done something in anger for which you later felt intense regret? That was your wounded shadow expressing its pain, saying, "Listen to me." Sociopaths commit crimes on impulse, without thinking. This is the impatience within us that forces us to act without caring about the consequences. They cannot hold down their jobs because they do not follow social rules. This is the rebellious spirit within us that challenges all forms of authority. But this rebellion often ends up harming oneself. They prefer to work on the periphery of society, where they don't have to interact much. This is the part of us that is afraid of forming deep relationships for fear of getting hurt. Knowing the difference between these two characters is interesting, but the real lesson is not in their difference, but in their presence within us. Psychopaths and sociopaths are not a separate species. They are two extreme ends of human psychology. We all exist somewhere on this spectrum. Look at the media examples. Jeffrey Dahmer was a psychopath, organized, ruthless, without remorse. He shows us what happens when the cold shadow takes complete control. Tommy from the series Power is a sociopath, emotional, impulsive, and occasionally full of regret. He shows us the destruction that occurs when the wounded shadow is out of control. Instead of labeling these characters, ask yourself, in my life, when does my cold shadow appear? When I ignore the feelings of others for my own goals? When does my wounded shadow scream? When I can't tolerate criticism and explode with anger? The treatment for these disorders is psychotherapy and medication, although it is often unsuccessful because many do not want treatment. But for us, the path to healing is self-awareness. Carl Jung called it shadow integration, acknowledging, understanding, and making the dark aspects of our personality a part of us so that they do not unconsciously control us. When you acknowledge the psychopath within you, your cold, calculating part, you can use its energy not for ruthlessness, but to focus on goals, establish discipline, and make difficult decisions. When you understand the sociopath within you, your wounded emotional part, you listen to its pain, you heal it, and you can use its energy for creation and passion instead of destruction. So what did you learn from today's video? Have you ever faced these traits in your own life? Tell us in the comments what you think about your cold or wounded shadow. If this video helped you see yourself from a new angle, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more such deep journeys. Remember, the purpose of understanding these monsters is not to become them, but to ensure that you never fall under their control.